Welcome to Fantasia, home of the Melodious. My name's Azallea, and today, gonna be bringing you guys another playtesting video. Now this time, we're gonna be using my Lyrilusc deck. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into this. So starting off, I am of course going to draw 5 cards for my opening hand. Now, Lyriluscs are a deck that you don't really expect to go first, but oh boy do I have a surprise for you guys. So starting off, we have a copy of Pot of Desires, Instant Fusion, Where Art Thou, Lamia, and Dark Contract with the Gate. So these 5 cards are absolutely amazing for a starting hand because it's full of combo pieces. Now, first thing I'm going to do is going to activate Pot of Desires because it allows me to see more cards, and because we're running 45 cards in our deck, we're running a fair amount of buffer cards, so those can potentially be banished. We're playing 3 copies of most of the major cards in the deck, so I'm not afraid of banishing all copies of any specific card. So it looks like our deck did just that. We banished a few copies of Jester Confit, Turbo Booster, maybe 1 or 2 Lyrilusc monsters, and we managed to draw into a 1-for-1 and a Monster Reborn, so watch out guys, the sacks are coming in. Okay, so now with our hand, the first thing I'm going to do is activate our Dark Contract with the Gate. We did banish 1 copy of Kepler from our deck, but that doesn't really matter because we still have more search targets. We have 1 more Kepler, and I believe we have another Lamia in the deck as well. So there are 2 search targets for Gate, and yes, we did pass that Lamia right there, but what we're interested in is going for the Kepler. So even though we have a Lamia in the hand, it's still very important to use that Gate to search out Kepler and use our normal summon on him. And the reason why is because you want to have extra cards in your hand for discard effects with like your Nightmares for instance, or perhaps you're using Saryuja and you can put those duplicate cards that you don't need, such as an extra copy of Gate, which we're searching out with Kepler right now, back into your deck so you can keep some of the better cards that you drew off of the Saryuja effect. So adding that Gate back to our hand, now we have a few options in front of us. The first thing we need to do is establish more monsters on our side of the field, so what better way to do so than with that 1-for-1 that we just drew off the Desires. So in order to get some value out of the 1-for-1, we're going to go ahead and discard the DD Lamia from our hand, and DD Lamia can activate her effect from the hand or graveyard. Just by sending that Dark Contract to the Gate to the graveyard from our side of the field, we can special summon her out. So putting her into the graveyard with 1-for-1 definitely gives you the most value out of all the other cards that we have. So you did have a multiple of options that you can go for. You can go for things like Glow Bulb or Dotscaper. Both of those monsters count as essentially 2 monsters in one because their effect to revive themselves from the graveyard, which is pretty nice. But in this case, I ended up going with a Cobalt Sparrow, and I used her effect to go and search out a copy of Sapphire Swallow. Sapphire Swallow is a little bit more versatile than Turquoise Warbler in this situation, but if you, in any situation, happen to have a Saryuja in your extra monster zone, then searching for Turquoise Warbler is pretty strong because then you can special summon her out from your hand with his effect and bring something back from the graveyard as well. So that's a way to get value. But to follow up the play with my current hand, I activate my Instant Fusion and I special summon out my Independent Nightingale. Now Independent Nightingale, don't forget to activate her effect to burn your opponent for 500 damage. Every little bit of damage does add up, especially with these new time rules and all that shenanigans, right? So the next thing I'm going to do, speaking of time rules, I'm going to just activate Where Art Thou so I can take 2000 damage during the end of my turn because that's fun. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and search out that Turquoise Warbler that I mentioned earlier because in this case, Turquoise Warbler actually combos off really well with my Sapphire Swallow in hand that I searched out earlier. So now that I have both my Lyriluscs, I need to go ahead and set up my graveyard so I'm going to get optimal value out of my Turquoise Warbler's effect. So what we're going to do next is use our Independent Nightingale as material for the Link summon of Linkuriboh. Now Linkuriboh is a very versatile Link monster for this deck, especially with its down arrow, because it can help us establish a lot of co-links. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is activate my Sapphire Swallow's effect in hand to special summon out my Turquoise Warbler alongside of it since we control a Winged Beast type monster on our side of the field. Now I'm going to activate Turquoise Warbler's effect because she'll special summon from the hand. I can special summon a Lyrilusc monster back from my graveyard, in this case Independent Nightingale that was sent earlier. So now what I'm going to do is use my Independent Nightingale and my Kepler to start establishing some co-linked monsters, and the Nightmares are perfect for this. So the first monster I'm going to go for is my Nightmare Phoenix. Now it depends on the order that you want to go in. If you want to go for Cerberus first, make sure you use your extra monster zones correctly. You want to put your Link Rebo in the right extra monster zone. But in this case, because I went for Phoenix first, I went with the left extra monster zone. Now I'm going to use my Phoenix and my Cobalt Sparrow to go ahead and link Climb into my Tri-Gate Wizard. It's fine that we use the Phoenix, we can always revive her later with my Monster Reborn, so that's fine. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is use my Sapphire Swallow and my Turquoise Warbler on my side of the field to go ahead and link summon yet again. This deck is very versatile in the types of fields that it can pump out. So I'm going to go for a copy of Nightmare Goblin because Goblin can potentially grab me another draw. So I'm going to use Goblin's effect to grant me an additional normal summon by discarding a card, and because he was co-linked when this effect was activated, I can draw a card from the top of my deck, and lucky me, I drew into a copy of Turbo Booster. So really what we're looking for in that scenario was just to draw any other monster card. It could, if it was something like Kepler or something like Kinkabio, which we could get value out of with an additional normal summon, it would have been great, but because we also have a bunch of cards like Jester, Comfit, and Turbo Booster that can special summon themselves out from my hand without the normal summon, it is completely fine. Our chances of establishing a pretty strong field was pretty high, so that's why I went for the gamble and just used that extra gate that we had with the Kepler as fodder. So now, reviving the Lamia from my graveyard, and then bringing that Turbo Booster out to my side of the field, I go for another Link Summon. A little mistake that I did on screen here was that the Lamia should have been banished because she'll special summon to the field with her own effect, but that doesn't really matter at this point because I won't be using her again. Okay, so now that I have my Cerberus summoned to my side of the field, co-linked with my Goblin, I can activate my Monster Reborn to reborn my Nightmare Phoenix, and now I've established an amazing board with a bunch of co-links. All of my co-linked monsters cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effect, nor can they be targeted by card effects. I have no cards left in hand, and Tri-Gate Wizard is able to negate and banish some of my opponent's cards, which is absolutely fantastic. So with that incredibly powerful field behind us, let's take a look at some of our other options. So in this opening hand, we have Turquoise Warbler, Sapphire Swallow, Turbo Booster, Where Art Thou, and 1-for-1. So we have two cards that can tutor other cards out from our deck in the form of Where Art Thou 1-for-1, and we also have a few combo starters such as Turquoise Warbler and Sapphire Swallow. So because we control no monsters on our side of the field, I'm going to special summon Turquoise Warbler from my hand straight to my side of the field, and then special summon my Sapphire Swallow alongside of her. Next thing I'm going to do is activate my Where Art Thou to go ahead and search for a level 1 monster, because we control a level 1 monster on our side of the field already. And this time we're not going to be taking 2000 damage during the end phase of our turn, because we're actually going to normal summon what we searched out. So I went for the Kepler search, and I'm going to normal summon him to my side of the field, so I can go ahead and search for a copy of Dark Contract with the Gate. I'm going to activate Dark Contract with the Gate immediately to go ahead and search out for a copy of DD Lamia. Now this is a great way to help you thin out your deck, and this is a very, very consistent engine. It's much more consistent than something like, say, Evil Thorn. So I'm going to go ahead and add that DD Lamia from my deck to my hand, and now what I'm going to do is the same thing as we did in our last hand, which is getting value out of the Lamia. So I'm going to go ahead and activate the 1-for-1, discarding the DD Lamia from my hand to go ahead and special summon a level 1 monster out from my deck. Now in this case I do have several options. Cobalt Sparrow is definitely one of them. Glow Bulb and Dotscaper are other options that I could potentially go for. So in this case I think I opt to actually go for Glow Bulb, because I don't really need the other search from Cobalt Sparrow at this moment. So going for the Glow Bulb, it essentially acts as two monsters just as Dotscaper would, but Glow Bulb helps you thin out your deck and tutor some more cards out from your deck and put them into the graveyard because of its excavation effect when you summon it back. So now what I'm going to do is use my Sapphire Swallow to go ahead and link summon into my Linkuriboh. With the down arrow, Linkuriboh is very, very powerful to help you again establish co-links if that is ever needed. But what I ended up doing instead was just using it as material alongside of my other monsters, making sure I put my Kepler into the extra deck to go ahead for a link summon of Saryuja. Now I did not need to make my Linkuriboh before going into the Saryuja, but I decided to do that anyway just in case you have lingering level 1s on your side of the field. You can go ahead and use Linkuriboh's effect to just summon it back from your graveyard, so it's something that's really great to have in circulation if you're not using it for its down arrow, like we did in the last example. So now that we have Saryuja summoned, we have to go ahead and shuffle our deck and cut it, just because we searched out stuff earlier, so you don't want to get disqualified now, do you? So we have 4 cards that we drew off the Saryuja, and we get to look at them along with the cards that are currently in our hand to see what we want to, well, put back. So I decide to put back the Dark Contract with the Gate and Call by the Grave. Now, it's kind of a toss-up in the air between Jester Confit and Ash Blossom, whether or not you want to continue comboing off or whether or not you want some defensive plays. But I ended up choosing to keep the Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring just in case I don't establish too powerful of a field like I did last time. Okay, so now what I can do is I can activate my Glow Bulb's effect in the graveyard. I'm going to excavate the top card of my deck, and we see that it was a Pot of Desires, so that was quite unfortunate. It would have been great to get a Desires off of the Saryuja, but unfortunately that doesn't always happen. So Glow Bulb sent that to the graveyard, but that is completely fine. Now I'm going to activate my DD Lamia in the graveyard as well, and special summon her to my side of the field. Now it is important to note that DD Lamia, if you use her as an XYZ material, she does not get banished, and instead if you detach her, she goes to the graveyard instead, so that is what I'm doing right here. I want to see more cards, and I want to see if I could potentially grab another spell card from my deck, so I went for a copy of Sylvan Princess Sprite. Now Princess Sprite gains 300 attack because you'll summon under Saryuja, and I'm going to go ahead and activate her effect, detaching the DD Lamia to send her to the graveyard so she can potentially be used again if I draw into another copy of Gate or something that she can go ahead and send to the graveyard. Now I'm going to go ahead and special summon my Turbo Booster out from my hand to my side of the field, so I can go ahead and activate another copy of Where Art Thou. And Where Art Thou is going to allow me to search for a level 1 monster from my deck and add it to my hand. Now, one of the best monsters to search for in this scenario is probably a Lyrilusc, because of the fact that they can help me swarm my field. I've only used Turquoise Warbler this turn. I did not use Cobalt Sparrow or Sapphire Swallow yet, so that's something to keep in mind. So now I'm going to activate Saryuja's effect to special summon a monster out from my hand, and the monster of choice is going to be the Cobalt Sparrow. Cobalt Sparrow can now, when she is special summoned, go ahead and search out another level 1 Wind Beast type monster from my deck and add it to my hand, in which this case I'm going to be adding the Sapphire Swallow. Now what I can do is, since I don't have any other Lyrilusc monster that's currently in my hand, I only have that Sapphire Swallow, I can go for a search if I decide to go for it with an overlay. Now I'm going to overlay my Cobalt Sparrow and my Turbo Booster to go ahead and XYZ summon my Recital Starling. Now, Lyrilusc Recital Starling is a very powerful card and can even search out things like hand traps such as DD Crow, but in this build I'm not running that card, so in this case I'm just going to go ahead and try to expand my board. When Recital Starling is XYZ summoned, you can boost another monster on the field by 300 times the number of XYZ materials that it currently has, so because it had 2 materials when it's summoned, it can boost a monster by 600 attack points, in which case I boosted my Saryuja for the extra 600, so it reaches 3400 attack, which is very, very powerful. Now, using Recital Starling's effect, I detached a copy of Cobalt Sparrow to go ahead and search for the Turquoise Warbler, and now because I control a Winged Beast type monster on my side of the field, I can special summon out my Sapphire Swallow and my Turquoise Warbler alongside of it. Because I've already used my Turquoise Warbler's effect earlier this turn, I cannot use its revival effect in this case, so I'm just going to go ahead for a simple overlay, and I'm going to XYZ summon for an Assembled Nightingale. Now, it is important to note that Assembled Nightingale can be very helpful in helping you defend your life points because you can make it so you take no battle damage. It can also help protect your Recital Starling and itself from destruction by battle or by card effects, which is very nice. Your Recital Starling is also immune to targeting effects because of your Cobalt Sparrow that's used as material. Our Assembled Nightingale is not as protected, but that's completely fine. Next turn, if nothing happens, we still have access to things like Sylvan Princess Sprite, and we also have another search off of the Recital Starling. Now, one thing I forgot to do in this example right here was when I XYZ summoned my Assembled Nightingale, I should have been able to activate the effect of Sapphire Swallow, because once it's used as material, I can actually attach a Lyrilusc monster from my graveyard to it as a material, so Assembled Nightingale should also have that Cobalt Sparrow attached under it. But that little mistake aside, guys, that is going to be it for this playtesting video. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, please leave a like, subscribe for more Lyrilusc content, and leave a comment down below letting me know what I can do to improve. And until next time, take care.